Hey there, what's up, everybody? This is time for the episode I was both excited and very afraid to do. This is going to be my experience with dealing with mental health issues that I've been dealing with now for the better part of 26 years, starting with my service time in the Army, what what triggered all this, things that happened, why things happened in the way they did in the Army, and then the years after that, things I dealt with, um, how it affected people in my life over the years, and where I am today with it. I Please be patient with this episode. It's not going to be easy. I am kind of emotional when it comes to this, and I've had to spend the last better part of a year talking to people about this, and I've learned that it's very difficult. It's always been a problem for me opening up to people. I'd rather hold things in and deal with them when they get bad. Yeah, it's not healthy. I know it's not healthy. I've been told numerous times it's not healthy. It's just who I am. I've been forced many times in my life to deal with it head on. And I just want to talk about some of these times. I'm not expecting this to be a very flowing episode. I've had to make notes. I've got notes here to kind of keep me on track. Not only is this a difficult topic for me, my brain is like a squirrel with ADHD that just got into some caffeine. I'm going to be all over the place with this. So please be patient. And I hope somebody gets something out of this. I guess it started with me. The majority of my health problems and mental health problems started in the Army. I enlisted in 1996. I was very, very afraid to enlist. I did it because I grew up in a small town. I spent my first year out of high school. I tried college. It wasn't for me. I consider myself very smart when it comes to things that I'm interested in. I let somebody talk me into a topic, or I guess a degree that used computers but wasn't with computers, and that was my passion in the 90s, was computers. I enjoyed being with computers. I enjoyed working with them. That's what I wanted to do. So it just wasn't for me. I bounced around a couple retail jobs before I went in the Army. What got me in the Army is my childhood friend, my best friend, was in the Army. I went to visit him. I believe it was end of 95, maybe the beginning of 96. I liked what I saw when I went and visited him. I saw units, I saw people, the camaraderie, the brotherhood, and I kind of was just attracted to that. I was also the type of person, even though I didn't succeed much in things, I've always been the type of person, don't tell me I can't do something. Don't tell me that that's not for me. Because if I show a little bit of interest in it and you tell me that, I'm going to go out and do it just to spite. When I talked about my interest in the Army while I was visiting him, he told me, he goes, "This isn't the life for you. Don't do it." And at that point of my life, he was probably the only person who knew me the best. We knew each other, every aspect of each other's lives. From third grade up, we spent a lot of time getting into trouble, sports, staying active, fitness. We even dated cousins, a girl I was dating, he was dating her cousin. It was just, we were attached to hip. So he knew me the most. So when he said that, I instantly said, well, I'm going to do it then. So when I went to the Army, I told them the same thing I told the college. I like computers. I like technology. Well, with the military, these recruiters have quotas they're going to meet for specific MOSs. And instead of getting into something for computers, I was talked into communications. It sounded intriguing at the time. The things I got to do, the toys I got to play with, they made it sound wonderful. And like I said, even though I was determined to do this, I was afraid, like any kid would be. Okay, kid, I was turned 21 when I joined, but I was afraid. So I got into communications. I was 31 Romeo. It's a long title, multi-channel transmission system operator maintainer. We used UHF and VHF radios to create a network on the ground to provide support for anybody that needed communications back then. The equipment was all made by GTE. It was old. It was bulky. I learned a lot. I did enjoy it. I actually graduated from AIT in the top 10. I just took to it. I liked it. I was actually good at it. It wasn't computers, but it was technology. So I had a good time in AIT. The problem started with me was right at the end of basic, beginning of AIT. I sustained a pretty significant injury. At the time was thought just my lower back. It was so bad that I actually had trouble walking. I couldn't even utilize my right leg for months. This slowed things down. It put me in a different group. A lot of treatment, a lot of tests, a lot of MRIs. They overlooked the neck. They overlooked possible traumatic brain injury. I hit pretty hard when I fell. I actually was knocked out. I blacked out. I knocked out. And then when I came to, I was in so much pain, I threw up and then blacked out. So got to the next station, was treated, MRIs. After a couple months, they said, when I could start walking again, they said, you know what, you'll heal, you'll recover. I did my best to be the best soldier I could be with the injuries. All said and done, the thing I struggled with the most was running. After a mile or two, depending on the day, both legs would go numb, and it was very, very awkward to run. It was dangerous to run. I really couldn't feel anything in my legs. So I struggled running. That was really it. I struggled running. If we did anything significantly with climbing and jumping, I would feel some pain. If we did a lot of heavy lifting, I would feel some pain. And a few months after starting AIT, I started getting headaches. It was just the typical, take some ibuprofen, you'll be fine. This is just stress, you're hurt, pushed off. So, like I said, I went through AIT. I enjoyed it. Got assigned my first station. It was in Germany, which was great. I wanted to get out of my small town, and that was pretty much the furthest away I could get out of my small town at the time. I was excited to go. Plus, many of my friends from AIT also went to Germany. We also ended up on the same base. So it was a new experience, but I was experiencing it with people I was comfortable with. The unit I got to at the time, the signal battalion I got to at the time, the commander in charge, my first sergeant in charge, my platoon sergeant, section sergeants understood my injuries and were very patient with me. I was good at my job. I learned the skills from AIT into providing it in the real world very quickly. I worked well with everybody in my unit, and I just enjoyed the time over there. I was really good in the range. I was very good with my M16. I was also assigned an M60. I enjoyed throwing lead downrange, just like most people who join the Army do. This was 96 to 2000. I was very, very, very fortunate that there wasn't much going on in the world. I had a couple peacekeeping missions. Bosnia was one. Our unit never went. Nobody from our signal battalion went. I think some people were assigned, attached to other units at the time, but no full unit went. My friend from a different single battalion went once and did 6 months, but he said it was pretty uneventful. So I don't. The first thing I do want to say is I don't want people to think that my injuries and mental illness from the military came from some traumatic battle experience. I think that was part of the reason I pushed this off so long. Yeah, I had issues, but more people that served that actually went to battle had bigger issues. They needed the treatment. I didn't. In my mind, I was being a weak little bitch. I needed to just toughen up, keep it bottled up like I do, and deal with it. Like I said, I've never seen combat. I was hurt running, um, and I just felt that I didn't deserve any special treatment for my injury. I've been since told differently by many, many different people from the military, from the VA. I know that now, but my generation was taught you be tough. You have to be tough. It's just a boo boo. You'll be fine. Only weak men have mental illnesses. Toughen up. Be strong. You're not depressed. Go find something else. And that's how I was raised. That's just how it was back in my generation. So that younger. So I didn't deal with it. I didn't want to be that weak little bitch. I wanted to toughen up. I was an Army soldier. Communications. I was told that our main unit we were to support if they ever went anywhere needed communications was a special forces unit. I did get to meet the same unit twice. Whenever we went out and did field exercises, they were our op four, our opposing force, and they would come attack us and help us improve our defenses. And those were great times. I learned so much from these guys. Like I said, twice, 2 different years they came out and was our op four, same unit. So, when you go in the Army, a lot of people like to bust your balls and, hazing, I guess. And I never really knew if that was the truth, but seeing as how I met the same unit twice, kind of assuming that was the case, that if they went somewhere needed communications, that's where we would go. Working with these guys, they also went to the range with us a few times. And then we would sit, after we done policed all the brass, and, we would all sit around talk. And I found interest in the special forces. I was always intrigued by the concept of an Army Ranger. Learning what they did, learning the training they went through and the tests that they went through and how they pushed themselves to the limit. One of the things I had to do with being injured was the doctors always told me, build strength. It's something I'm going to hear for the next 25 years of my life. Build strength. Get strong, support your back, support your spine, and just keep building strength. So that's what I did. When I got to Germany, I worked out a lot. Running was difficult, but I biked. I did elliptical. I hit the gym a lot. Most times it was 2 times a day. And I got strong. I was very physically fit beyond the fact that running was a struggle. So I wanted to start entertaining, 2.5 years into being over there in Germany, I wanted to entertain the idea of pursuing something a little bit more challenging. The fear kind of went away. I saw the lifestyle. I saw everything. I lived it. I wanted to experience more. I wanted to become a soldier. Yes, I was in the Army, but in my mind, communications, we were just nerds. But I wanted to be more. About a year into my service in Germany, our unit commander changed. And that's when my life changed. I had the same first sergeant, but he was also prepping for retirement. So our new first sergeant was great, but he didn't have, I don't believe there was a rapport with the commander since, he was new. And for some reason, this man did not like the fact that I struggled running. Being great on the range, being one of the best at my job, establishing, the communication side of it, the tech side of it, I was still very good at this point. I actually earned a award for one exercise. We were short. We were supposed to have three in our section. We had three shelters that had the radios in it. It was supposed to be 3 man per shelter. We went to this field exercise with 4 total. We had 7 backhaul links to establish. We had a time crunch, and they put me in charge of this. And we made it. We did it. We beat the time crunch. Middle of winter, cold, frozen. We got everything set up, all the antennas set up, backhauls established, security set, and we were ready to rock. He didn't care about any of that. In his eyes, I was not a good soldier because I could not go out there and run more than a mile or 2. I would fall back, and this just didn't sit with him. He started to treat me differently. He actually pulled me out of my line and put me as a, I guess you want to say, secretary in headquarters platoon. I had to work in the office. I don't know why. I don't know if he felt that my injury made it that that's where I should be, protected. I don't know. He never explained it. So I became a glorified secretary doing office work. And then if I was needed during an exercise, I would go out and work with the crew. But majority of the time, even in the field, was his secretary. Our bond did not get stronger. It actually got worse. He was very, very verbally abusive to me. He was not afraid to let me know how he felt about me. And at one point, I think he just had enough of me, and he started the procedures to give me a medical discharge. I wanted to stay in. I wanted to move on to bigger, better things. So as soon as I found that out, I talked to one of the Army doctors and said, I want to fight this. Is it possible? And he gave me the same spiel. You will heal. You can recover. You need to build strength, get strong, go prove to him that you can run. So I spent a few months waiting for this medical review board. Sometimes at this point, 3 times a day in the gym. I was given permission from the first sergeant at the time to skip most morning PT sessions that were running to go do other forms of cardio or strength. I would go at lunch to do some other forms of cardio or strength, and then I would lift afterward with some friends. I got even stronger. I was almost 210 pounds of pure solid muscle. I was still good at my job. I was still excellent at the range. I was still assigned an M60. When it was the M60, you had both. You had an M16 and an M60. You had to carry both. He didn't take that away from me, but tried to medical me out. When it came to the medical review board, I sat in front of them and explained to them how I wanted to continue to be a soldier, how I wanted to try more. I wanted to go into different things. I didn't want to just do 4 and out. I wanted to stay in. I wanted to do more. They listened to my story. They took some statements that I actually took with me from some other soldiers, some of my sergeants, stating that I was a good soldier, that I could do my job. I was willing to go to battle if needed. And we left the medical review board. There was a period of maybe weeks where they do the review, and then you get a call or a letter. I even forget how I got the news. This was all, I want to say, probably 98 at the time, 1998. Also at this point is when I met my first soon-to-be wife. So that was even more reason to stay in. She was also a soldier stationed in a different unit, and it was another reason to stay in. So I got the news whenever it came down that I could stay in, but I was given what was called a profile, I guess a medical profile, physical fitness profile, limiting me on that nobody could force me to run. They said that I could not ruck carrying more than 25 pounds. I couldn't lift more than 25 pounds, but I could stay in. So I was excited. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but I was excited I could stay in. So I continued to do everything I had to do to stay in. After that battle, we went to another field exercise. Our field exercises in the signal world that we had was usually we would go out into December, beginning of January. And we set up comms, and then we hopped sites and stayed out there usually till May, end of May. So I had all the stress of that medical review board, staying in, new relationship. Went out to this exercise. I was not assigned to a unit to do my job. I was assigned as his secretary again, this time in a tent in the middle of nowhere. And I think he even regretted me even more since I got to stay in. Things got worse. I got really good at Microsoft Excel because that was the big part of our job, keeping track of soldiers in training. We used Microsoft Excel at the time. I got really, really good at it, programming in Microsoft Excel. He assigned me a project using Excel and something with all the soldiers in a unit. I made it happen to what in my mind was an excellent Excel spreadsheet with all these formulas. It was great. It rivaled a program, and everything was there. When I presented it to him out in the field, he said it was garbage, told me to delete it and start over. I think that was the first time I saw red and had my first breakdown. Some of the stuff happened after that was kind of sketchy for me. The only people in the tent was the commander and my new first sergeant at the time. But when I lost it, things ended up thrown off the table, including the computer. And I guess I went after the commander. I even threatened to kill him. That is not a good thing to do in the military. Like I said, I'm very fortunate for my first sergeant at the time. The first sergeant that when I got to the unit that was there, he actually was still in the process of retirement, but he was out in the field doing something different for headquarters company. The first sergeant at the time heard all this happening, pulled me out of the tent, went back in, talked to the commander, called the other first sergeant and assigned me to him for the remainder of the field exercise. The conversation that happened in the tent, I don't know what it was. All I know with what happened next, I'm assumed, since there was nothing charged against me, nothing legal took place, they came up with an agreement that I stay with this other first sergeant. We went back for a mail run, is what I was told. We were going back to the base for a mail run. When we arrived, I was his driver. When we arrived at base, I was taken to a psychiatrist. I was told that I need to see this psychiatrist, talk to him about what's going on with me, and that the other thing was dealt with. So I did. I did just that. We arrived late at night. He told me I was going to go see the psychiatrist next day. He took me to see him at the next base over, which is where the hospital was, and I spent a couple hours talking to this psychiatrist. Now, I don't know if he knew my commander at the time. I don't know what his connection was with all this. All I know is he dismissed everything that was actually really bothering me and put the blame on this new relationship. I think at this point we were married now only a month or two. He blamed my nervous breakdown on being married. He says, you just might be the type of man that you can't be married. And that's where he left it. He didn't, I explained to him the treatment, the injuries, how I was treated and everything like that. And he just dismissed all that and blamed this. He then he prescribed me 2 different, I guess you call them SSRIs at the time. One I know for a fact was Ativan. The other one, I don't remember what it was called. I should, because that was the dangerous one. That's where things got worse. I remember calling home and talking to my family about all this, and my dad was familiar with Ativan at the time. And when I told him how much they had me taking, he was like, that's not good. Be very careful with the stuff. Because I guess he had it at the time too, and he was taking, I guess, 0.5 milligram when needed. They had me on 2 milligrams twice a day. That's all I remember about the Ativan. The other stuff was a once a day. It pretty much took away all emotions. And nothing exciting, nothing depressing, no anger, no sadness. Just pretty much a blob walking around with a heartbeat and anxiety and depression. I probably took these for maybe a month. Like I said, the times, the lengths, a little fuzzy for me, but I know I was on them for a little while. The psychiatrist said the one that I don't remember the name of was one that once I take it, it's very dangerous just to stop cold turkey. So if I have any issues, to please come see him immediately. So one day I was leaving. We had our final formation. We lived off post at the time. Once I got married, we got a house off post. Now, the base I lived on in Germany, in Kitzingen, was at the top of a hill. You drove down this hill into the town. And the one thing I remember is the road. If you stay straight on this road and go through all the intersections through this town, you ended up at a river. I don't remember the name of this river, and I should too, because I spent 3.5 years in this town. It was a big river. I remember just not feeling it. And hold on. This was the only time in my life I actually tried to commit suicide. On these pills, I didn't care. I come down that hill with the intent of driving into that river. So, something in me was able to stop me. I went home, took those pills, all of them, and flushed them. I didn't care. I didn't want them. I figured if it's something dangerous, I'll go to the hospital, they'll fix it, or it'll kill me. Either way, I didn't want them anymore. Told my wife at the time why and what, and she just kept an eye on me for a while. Everything was fine. Nothing severe happened. I did not have any kind of negative reaction from stopping, other than after a few weeks, anger, depression, anxiety kicked in. I got really sick. I developed stomach issues. I couldn't even eat. I went from the 210 pounds of solid muscle to about 165, scrawny, weak, gray soldier. And this was just a period of a couple months. I was not in a good place. I kind of got with some close friends of mine. We kind of got into computer gaming at the time. I'll never forget it. It was called Unreal Tournament. Came out right about that time. I spent my time focusing on that. I just started playing computer games. It helped me. We would set up LAN parties and play against each other. We didn't have fast internet back then to play online, but we could link up together in the same room and play. I continued to go back to the gym. Like I said, this was probably closer to 99 now. It was 99. It was after 90. It was late 1999 because I got out in 2000. I just muscled through the last year. I was very fortunate about this time when I stopped taking these and this episode happened. That commander moved on. We got a new commander, and he pretty much just let me be. He was, as far as I know, never briefed on what happened. Didn't even talk to me about it. I finished out. I stayed in headquarters platoon. I never did go back to communications. But one thing I did find with talking with the re-enlistments team was that I could not re-enlist and change MOSs to anything that would get me into any kind of special forces, Army Rangers. With that profile, I was also not allowed to do air assault. I wasn't allowed to do airborne school. I couldn't do anything. And I think that's also what caused some of the depression when I found that out. At the time, since they knew I was into computers, I was offered something into a newly developed MOS for cybersecurity. I contemplated it, but it wasn't where my heart was. They were going to let me stay in Germany where I wanted to and do that. Um, it's just not what I wanted. And at the time, we had a newborn baby. My wife at the time ETS'd, came home, moved in with my parents. I still had a few months left over there. She had no interest in coming back to Germany, anyways. So that ended my time in the army. Um, I left Germany with all of my stuff and bottled up rage, depression, anxiety, and I now know PTSD from how I was treated. I didn't believe any of that. I didn't talk to any. The experience I had with that psychiatrist and what he put me on, I didn't talk to another counselor. I didn't talk to another psychiatrist. I didn't seek anything after that. I did not trust them. I felt they just wanted to sell me drugs. I did not want to be on them drugs. I value my life. I love my life. I have kids. I want to live. And if I'm going to take anything that's going to make me not care about that, I have no interest in it. Like I said, that was the closest I came. I was ready to do it, and it was the drugs I was on that caused that. So that is my Army experience, the way I was treated. So this brings me to getting out of the Army, transitioning back into civilian life, finding work. Not too many people in my life at this point knew the extent of anything going on. As a matter of fact, not even my wife at the time, I don't think she understood 100% of what I was going through. She knew I didn't feel good. She knew things were going on. I honestly don't believe she knew the extent of what was going on in my brain. I was even denying it and suppressing it. I was in the Army. I didn't deserve to feel this way. I didn't deserve to have these. I just was in communications. In my mind, I didn't do anything. I just held it in. I bottled it up. By the time I got out, dealing with that depression and all that, the way I hid it, I gained a lot of weight. When I left the Army, I was borderline obese. When I got out, I actually had to buy one uniform for the transition. So, come home. We're living with my parents with a newborn. We have to find work. The first sergeant that was my first sergeant when I arrived got out. When he retired, he got with a company that helped place veterans in technical jobs, veterans with Army technical jobs with civilian technical jobs. He helped pair our MOSs and how they transitioned into the real world. He got me connected with a Verizon job. Matter of fact, he flew back over to Germany to give me the test. This job was pretty much mine up until the last 3 weeks of me being in country. Verizon went on this huge layoff strike, hiring freeze. So that option was gone. That was not an option for me. We came home since she was in the similar MOS. It was a 31 series. She was not a Romeo. She was something different. She worked the node center, which was like the switching station, the central office, the system that processed all the radio and calls and where they were supposed to go. We went around to the cable companies, the phone companies, even people that installed networks and alarms. I mean, we went everywhere. Just wasn't much in the year 2000 back in here I am back in my small town that I worked so hard to get away from. Not much there. She got a job. I believe this is when she got in with a company that inspected and repaired bridges. She worked in the office. I got in with a company back then that was called Ameritech. They were a phone company. I was very fortunate I got in there, but I had to drive over an hour to where they hired me for. So I started there 2001, I believe. It was a union position, Communication Workers of America. It was only a couple years after having that job. It was sold and bought by a company called, what was that company? It was from Ameritech to something else, and then eventually AT&T. When it went to the second name, I can't believe I can't remember. My brain's mush. Layoffs started, and with me still being new, only there a couple of years, I was at the bottom of the list. I was laid off for almost a year. I got in with a friend who had a relative that he did radios. He had many towers in our area that he actually provided services to our state highway patrol. He sold radios to EMSs, and it was just kind of going away. It wasn't as popular then, but he also had a paging service, but it was, pagers were being phased out. Cell phones were kind of big coming in, flip phones back then. And that's what I did. He got a big contract with Nextel. They sold one of their frequencies, and we had to go out around the country and take out all the equipment that was associated with this frequencies, the antennas off the tower, the equipment out of the buildings, stuff like that. I did that for almost a year with him. Got a call back to the company, where I was laid off from. This time at a different shop, but back to what I was doing. I worked on POTS, plain old telephone service, what it's called, landlines. Some internet. It wasn't quite big back then, but back then it was like T1s. It was just dial-up. Still was big in our area. We didn't have DSL and a lot of cable internet in our small town. Did that again for probably another year and a half. Hit another layoff. This time I went back to the same guy. At this point, he had partnered with another guy that wanted to start a wireless high-speed internet company that used wireless technology. So since he had all these towers in the area, that's what we did. We went around and we installed wireless network, like very powerful Wi-Fi, but to your house from a tower. So you can imagine, second layoff, a baby, bought a new home. The stress just continued. It never got easy. But I still kept it bottled up. Nobody knew. I even was denying what was going on in my head. I pretty much kept everything that happened to me in the military locked up in a box inside of me, and I didn't think about it once. The only thing that I was reminded of was my injury, because I was at this point still overweight and in a lot of pain. Headaches nonstop. Neck would hurt, neck would crack, lower back pain, severe lower back pain. And every time I go see my family doctor, even though she knew something happened in the Army, she pretty much chalked it up as me being overweight. The headaches, she said, just stress. Neither the Army or anybody for their first years out even looked at my neck. Everybody focused on the lower back. After being out about 4.5 years, my family doctor finally ordered a MRI on my neck. And then at my time, the shoulder, because I did hurt my shoulder in the Army. I didn't realize that it was still bothering me, but I was having a lot of shoulder pain. And then she saw everything going on in my neck. A herniated C4, C5, slight degenerative disc, bulging. Just everything going on in the neck. Then she said those probably what's causing my headache, because the headache started at the exact same spot at the base of my head, top of my neck. And if I didn't deal with it, went up to the right side of my head, to my ear, and got pretty severe. I still kept everything bottled in. I know it was affecting me. It was affecting my marriage. It was really affecting who I was as a person. I knew how I wanted to treat people, because I've grown up around people that treated people poorly, and I didn't want to be that way. I grew up around the heartbreak of infidelity. I grew up around somebody that was racist, and I grew up around somebody that just treated people like crap. And with me growing up and seeing that as a young kid, I knew in my heart I did not want to be that person. I saw the heartache it caused. About 4 years into this, 4 years into this, it was starting to affect me, keeping things bottled up. I still didn't talk to anybody about it. I never opened up to anybody about it. Not even my doctor knew what was going on. I just dealt with it. Um, I probably took how things were in my marriage and made them worse than they were in my head to justify how I was. I'm not proud of this part of my life. Um, I neglected my family. I was selfish. I didn't care how my actions affected people. I just did what I needed to do to make me feel better about myself. I did go back to a gym. My third layoff was I got with a company that I was an IT guy for a trucking company. And they talked me into going to the gym with a few of the other managers. And I did get back into some shape. Um, that was the first time I noticed that losing weight helped with the back pain a little bit. I still kept things bottled up. Um, I became a really horrible, horrible person. I did things I'm not proud of. Um, you know, um, Having an affair. I didn't care if what I said hurt people. I just did whatever I had to do to make myself feel better. I put people down. I belittled people. I was the true definition of a turd. I was not a good human. I didn't like where I was going. Um, Obviously, this led to a divorce. 100% my fault. We had just had a newborn son. Ah, man, that really just makes me a horrible person. And I didn't care at the time. I don't understand why I didn't care. Um, Moved out. Um, Wanted to be a father. I definitely wanted that. I knew that. They were my life. Those kids were my life. But I still was selfish. If I had the chance to go do something for me, go hang out with my friends that make me happy, and I had to push off spending time with my kids, I did it. Um, I come up with a way just to say something that made me out not to be a bad guy, but I still was a bad guy. I was a horrible father. Met somebody new. This person did not know anything about what happened in the Army, what I was holding up bottled inside. And this person also had issues. So for 4 or 5 years, I'm going to kind of just brief it, was a lot of fighting, a lot of distrust, a lot of accusations. Um, at this point, I did make up my mind of never, ever again doing some of the things I did. I didn't want to be that person, but I still, the one I was with just knew how to push my buttons. And the one thing I knew, one thing I never will do is I never will hit a woman, but I will get angry and destroy things. And that happened a lot. TVs, walls, cars, whatever. At this point, I still have not talked to anybody. We're probably looking about 8 years out now from being out of the Army, almost 10 years out. In another horrible marriage, even though this person and I did not get along. Even before we got married, she had cheated on me. I still married her. I don't know why. I just had enough. I was laid off again. I was still, at this point, was AT&T. The one layoff, they had to offer me, according to the union, a position within a certain mile radius, and if it was beyond a certain mile radius of my shop, they had to pay me a relocation fee. If I turned it down, I was taken off the recall list, so they didn't have to recall me. So I took the job. It was offered at over 2 hours away from where I lived. So I took the job, got a small apartment, took the relocation bonus. I wasn't even moved into the apartment. I went to the shop I was going to report to and was informed that there was another layoff announcement. I didn't last 3 months in the city. I was laid off again. At this point, I was done. This was just before 10 years because I still had GI Bill left. I took that GI Bill and I learned a new trade. I was always fascinated with welding. I was always interested in working on things and fixing things like cars and stuff like that. And the concept of working with metal was fascinating to me. Up where I was a Lincoln Electric Weld School. I was able to use my GI Bill to get certified in welding there. I kept taking classes there for months. I took all the classes I could. And again, it was something I enjoyed doing, so it was something I put 100% of my life into. I didn't care who it affected. I spent most of my time up in that school. This did not go unnoticed. I was actually hired by Lincoln Electric to be a construction millwright. It was called, not a repair millwright, not on a repair crew, but we built things. We worked with the engineers and we built things and changed the lines up. It was not a good paying job. It was still over 2 hours from my house. I didn't have the apartment at this time because in school I didn't have the money to keep a separate apartment and live where I live. So I drove to that school every day. I drove to that job every day. I lost money doing that job. But when you are in the welding industry and you have on your resume that you are a welder for Lincoln Electric, one of the leading manufacturers of welding equipment, it stands out. And that's the only reason I did that job for almost a year. Still keeping all the depression bottled up, all the anxiety bottled up, the rage, I drank a lot. By this point, I was into the alcohol. I had to quit that job because there was a couple times driving to this job that I would doze off on the highway. I dozed off, missed my exit once, woke up, somehow still driving. I guess it was just a quick nod off, but I missed my exit. The same drive, I nodded off again, missed the second exit. It took me over an hour out of my way. At this point, I said I had enough. I had to find something close. I got with a fab shop that was much closer to my house, just even less money, but I was welding and I enjoyed it. The one reason I took to welding is when I'm behind that welder's mask, that was my therapy. My thoughts left me. When that welding mask came down and I created that arc, I went to, I guess that was my happy place. I enjoyed it more than anything in life. Next to my kids, it's when I was welding, it was great. I did it. I did it a lot. Did this job for a few months, and then the company that I swore I would never go back to reached out and they were honest this time. It was a temporary callback, but it was in my hometown, and it was max pay, the max they paid anybody, and it was working with digital lines. They were way behind on installation and repair of the new DSL. It was a 6-month job, but I was offered unlimited overtime, max pay, holidays, and everything. Financially, I had to take it. I couldn't turn that down. I knew it was temporary. I was looking for something new at the time. I applied to be in the Boilermakers. That's where I wanted to go. A friend of mine was a Boilermaker. He was trying to pull strings to get me in there. I applied also at the one mill that I knew was being built in my area, that I had friends that worked for that company that knew that mill was being built. I applied for them both. The local rep, the rep for the Boilermakers, came in from the next city one day. I was still working with the phone company. Met me for lunch, looked over my work history, looked over my welding certifications. I had a few at the time. And said that this was winter, because I remember working Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. I remember working Thanksgiving Day. I worked New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. He said, listen, he goes, you're in. He goes, you are going to be a Boilermaker. He says, but unfortunately, we're just recruiting for a May start date. Like I said, this is winter. He says, so you do what you want. He goes, but I'm going to recommend that you take this 6 months with this, finish off, go on unemployment, and wait. He says, just weld. He goes, we'll see if we can get you into some of our welding facilities and just practice. He goes, we're going to try to get you to take a test and skip 2 years of apprenticeship, since I had some experience. Come home, told the wife at the time what happened, and I said this was good news. Happened to check my email that day and realized that the mill I applied for also sent me an email, but went to my spam folder. So I had a decision to make: go to the mill, go be a pipe fitter. Now, the pipe fitter, he was upfront and honest, and he says that you are busy in the winter, you are busy in the summer, you're laid off a lot in the spring and fall, but you make enough money that it doesn't affect you financially. In this other company, it was a full-time job as a millwright, and they were really looking for welders. They were hiring in phases. I was hired in the third phase. The first two phases had no welders. So I picked that job. The thought of constant layoffs again did not sit well with me. Also, at the time of taking this job, I decided to move out. Things weren't going well in that marriage. I had to do it for me. I had to fix my relationship with my kids. I had to focus on them, and I had to start focusing on myself. So I moved out. Got my own house, spent more time with the kids. I picked a house that was in the same town that they lived in so I could see them easier. I worked shifts at this new job in the mill, worked my butt off to be the best millwright I could be, because that's just what I do when I have things I enjoy. At this point in my life, I still have not talked to a professional about the things I was keeping bottled up. I could sense they were still there. I could sense that they were getting bad because I was still drinking very heavily. I'm talking almost every night. I was eating like crap every night. A typical night for me was a 12-pack of beer, a dozen or two of hot wings, and whatever potatoes that come with them, and then a dessert. That was my typical dinner almost every night. Hamburgers, fried food, greasy food, and beer. And on a weekend, it got worse. It went from beer to hard liquor, junk food. I was not on a good path. As far as my career went, I was on a good path. As far as my health went, I was not. Whenever I was hired at that mill, the new mill was still being built. I spent the first few months working in the old mill just to get familiar with how a steel mill ran. And then we transitioned to the new mill as they were installing the equipment. I was fortunate enough that that was a very, very huge place, and we had to walk everywhere with prints to verify. We couldn't put hands on anything because we were a non-union shop, and everything was being installed by unions. So all I could do was observe, and we had to observe from a distance, and we had to verify that things looked right according to prints. And if anything didn't look right, like the match the print, we noted on a print, and we went back and fixed the prints. This place was probably about an hour and 10 minutes from my house. I would go to work, come home. If I could see my kids, I spent time with my kids. If I didn't spend time with my kids, I sat on the couch, watched TV, and drank. But with our trailer, our construction trailer on the site at the time was almost a quarter mile from the entrance of the mill. And then we had to walk around the mill. I did get into a little bit better shape. It was rough on me walking in mill boots that much. I think when I got hired, I was almost 280 pounds, if not more. The wake-up calls when they ordered my uniforms. I started to notice that when I'm having a triple X shirt and it's snug, something's wrong. That is actually when I decided to order my first workout program, because I wanted to make a change then. I didn't want to deal with the mental health issue of it, but I wanted to be in shape. I hated who I was. I blamed being obese on how I treated people. I blamed being out of shape for belittling people. I got to break them down so I feel better about myself. I still was doing this at that time. I don't have no idea how I even made friends at this new job. I was a complete ass. I ordered it. When it came in, it had a menu with it. I went to the store with my kids. That was one of my adventures with my kids. We shopped for this food. We went home. We made the food. I got food poisoning. I didn't even open the discs, because it was discs you put in. You did this program. It was, at home workout. I didn't even open the discs. I threw it on the shelf. I think I was sick for 2 days from that. And I didn't even bat an eye at it again. Um, Not quite a year later, the mill was running. We were on shift still. That is when I had to have that physical to be certified to actually run the cranes. From this point on, we weren't certified, but we were running them. So we had to be certified, and that's when um, I had the blood work done that stated that, that showed that I was not healthy. None of this was showing my mental health. At this point, I was still bottling everything up. The only time I felt any kind of normal about myself was when I was with my kids. When they were playing, getting into sports, when we were doing things, we would sit, watch movies, we would shop together. I was focusing on being a better dad, even though I wasn't dealing with the problems I had. I started working out. Like I said, that I had to have that blood work done. It didn't come back good. There was a weight loss challenge at work. In my mind, it was a sign to make a change. By this point, I was probably somewhere between 250 and 260-ish from all the walking around the mill. That was very tough because I was so out of shape and I always hurt. My back always hurts. I had nerve pain down my legs. I had parts of my leg that were actually numb and tingly. I was fighting that a lot. Started the workouts. Made up my mind that I was going to do these no matter what. And there was days where it was a struggle to do them because I was very sore. These home workouts, the insanity that I picked had a lot of jumping. Jumping is not good for my lower back. It had a lot of jumps. It had, it was a lot of high intensity stuff. Not to mention, I'm still out of shape. I'm still walking around the mill every day. I've pushed through it. One thing I noticed, the first thing I noticed almost immediately was mental health improvements. I started noticing less anger to people. I started noticing I could treat people better because I didn't mind being around people a little bit more. I was sleeping better, mainly because I was exhausted, but I was sleeping better. I definitely had a better relationship with my kids because I tried to get them involved. We would do things together. I enjoyed how it made me feel. Now, I'm still at this point not dealing with the actual root cause of what's bottled up inside of me. Those demons were down in there, and that box was still locked. I was not even thinking about the military. I wasn't thinking about getting hurt. I wasn't thinking about how I was treated. It was just there. I kept it locked up. I never once at this point in my life even thought about going to the VA. Didn't even know things were an option at that point. Just doing the best I could on a daily basis. Took it day by day. The meals I were doing, like I said, was a home order, like a mail order meal kit that was designed to help you lose weight. It helped me in the meal because, like I said, I just throw it in the microwave and eat. Or if some of it didn't have to be heated up, you just ate it. I was allowed unlimited salads on the side. I would stop and get a salad on days I knew that was a busy day with a lot of walking. The meals that were provided weren't enough calories. I ate a lot of salads. The dressings were only vinegar. I was only allowed vinegar. I drank a lot of water and unsweet tea. The weight came off very, very quickly. My mental health did improve. I'm going to be completely honest with that. The fitness side of it did make an improvement. Even though I was still ignoring things going on and not dealing with those head on, I felt better about myself. I treated people differently. I worked well with people. I wasn't being an ass on purpose to people. I still had my issues. I still had my moments. I'm not going to lie. I still do today. I enjoyed it. I realized at that time that physical fitness was the best therapy for me. And it only progressed from there. I got into running as much as I could. I got into lifting. I got into working out in group fitnesses, in person, being with people. I found Some places that did classes, the programs that I was doing on videos had live classes you could go do. So when my job title changed at work, I went into reliability engineering. Um, I was sent to Knoxville, Tennessee a lot for my certifications. There was a gym down there that had an instructor that was certified to teach a lot of these courses that I was doing in videos. And it was exciting to do these in person and seeing other people doing them and listening to stories and meeting people that made positive changes. From that moment on, for the next 12 years, I used fitness as my therapy. And it worked for the most part. It helped. Once I lost the weight, I did meet somebody new. Somebody introduced me to Terry, my wife now. And I went into that relationship feeling a lot better about myself. Like I said, I used physical fitness as my therapy. So I was a better person at that time. She knew I was in the Army. She knew I was hurt. That was the extent of what she knew. I changed jobs at the time. I went and did a job as just a reliability engineer. So instead of working in one place doing it, I worked for a company that went to many different places and did it. I got more certifications. I traveled to power plants, coal mines, steel mills, chemical factories, hospitals, food processing places, and just analyzed machineries, did laser alignments, did balancing, all kinds of stuff. And I got really good at it. I enjoyed it. I became the best I possibly could at it. I was given more clients. I was given some of the more important clients. I was the one that was sent out for the important alignments, the difficult alignments, the difficult balancing. I traveled a lot. The majority of my clients were 2.5 hours from my house. I was based out of the house as if we had to go to the office for meetings, but I left my house to go to my sites. It was great. I did that for a few years. Things started to come back though. It was the driving. Now, I live near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And if you've never been in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania and had to drive in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, you haven't experienced pure hell on a highway. It's a bottleneck going into the city. It's a bottleneck through the city. It's a bottleneck out of the city, no matter which direction you come from. All of my clients were completely through the city, so I had to go through the city in one direction or the other. The good thing about me working from my house, I could set my own schedule, and all my clients were okay with me being there very, very early. So I left my house every day at 4 a.m. just to beat the traffic. And I got to leave that site early to try to beat the evening traffic. Most of the times this worked. Sometimes it didn't. I did develop my mental, my anxiety and my anger, all that turned into severe road rage. It became very unhealthy. I got to the point where I absolutely despised getting in that car and going anywhere. If we went anywhere and it wasn't for work, my wife drove. I couldn't stand being in the car. I did not want to do. To this day, I still even have part of it. People driving in the left lane absolutely just drive me nuts to this day. And that happens a lot in Pittsburgh. And traffic and just coming to a complete stop and sitting in one spot for 45 minutes because of accidents. I just couldn't do it anymore. This new mill was starting back up after the pandemic and things were shut down. A company bought an older mill, and a friend of mine got into the one portion of the mill and said that they were hiring. So he reached out to a recruiter for me, and I entertained the idea because I needed to go from point A to point B without going through that city. It was closer to home, not by much, but it was closer. So that's how I ended up where I am now. I still get road rage. I'm not going to lie. I still get road rage, but I can drive more now. I can go in when I need to. I can, being in my position, I can set my schedule as long as I'm there. So I do beat the traffic and I come home earlier on days that I don't, if there's no emergency there and I have to stay, or if I don't get called out there. So this job was much better. But like I said, at this point in my life, a little over 3 years ago, I still have not dealt with things locked up in here. They're still there at this point. The thing I started noticing the most was this new position I am, and when you get into management, you got to attend meetings. I'm not out there fixing things anymore. I'm in meetings talking about the things that need fixed. I'm in meetings planning the down days, the outages, the repairs, scheduling the contractors, getting the parts. One thing I started noticing right off the bat was when there's a lot of people in a meeting, our meetings consisted of a lot of people in one room, a phone in the center of the room or a computer in the center of the room with somebody from Teams with several more people. And when you have all these different cultures together in a meeting, because our company is worldwide and we have people from all over the world working in our area right now, people like to talk. And then when they have a point to make, they don't mind talking over other people. That really started bothering me. I didn't know why. It was like nails on a chalkboard to me. I could not be in that room. There's been times where I've got up and walked out of meetings. I was starting to get to that point where I didn't want to be again, and I had to be professional. So things started bothering me again. I started noticing it again. It started affecting me my whole life, even at home. I can't be in groups. I don't like being in loud, I can tolerate it for a few hours. I don't like being in loud situations. I can't take it. I developed over the years, and I don't know why, because like I said, I have never been in combat. I developed a really high state of awareness. In public places, I have to be in a spot where I can see everybody. When we go to a restaurant, I have to sit where I can face the majority entrances or the entrance. I instantly take note of everybody around me and what they're doing and who they are. I don't know why I developed this survival skill, but I have it. And it's very, very annoying because I can't turn it off. I want to go places and enjoy myself, but I can't. If I drink a little bit, I can. I don't like to drink. I don't like the feeling of drinking. So I will have an occasional drink, but I don't like doing it. I hate to say it, but I do believe that I am not a fun person to go out with whenever everybody's going out to drink and have fun. I'm not that person. It started developing problems, but I had to learn to deal with it. So I was trying my best. I didn't want to cause problems at home. I wanted to go out and enjoy and do what she wanted to do because she was going out and doing things I wanted to do. It was hard for me. I would get my headaches, probably from the tension and stress. And I had to learn to deal with it. I was making do for a couple years. Like I said, I still was into fitness and pushing myself to my absolute limits. What that meant for me was finding something that was harder than the last thing and committing to it. Like I said, running, got into biking. My friend got me into swimming. And since I could do all three, I might as well do triathlons, right? And there, if I'm going to be bad at one, I might as well be bad at three. I enjoyed them. They were very challenging. So I got into triathlons. The idea in my head of going out there and doing an Ironman was very intriguing to me. I liked the idea of me being an Ironman, but I wasn't ready for that. At this point in my life, I still can't go out and run a full marathon without having problems, without having pain. I can't. So how am I going to swim 2 miles? How am I going to bike 110 miles and then go out and run a full marathon? So as long as I can do the first two kind of fast, I can walk a lot of the third. There's a time limit, but I can do it. I got into the small sprint distance triathlons, and I was making do. The 5K run, I jogged most of it, but I had to walk some of it. I enjoyed the biking and swimming though because it was very, there was no impact. I enjoyed it. It was fun. Swimming, when I'm not in a race, I enjoy it. I go to a different place mentally. I focus on the sound of my breath, and it just takes me away. There's no stress when I'm swimming. When I'm swimming in an event and it's timed, I struggle. I'm an impatient person, and I'm not a fast swimmer. So I really got to focus on my thoughts while I'm swimming because I can get into my own head and I can cause problems. And it took me a couple of years of swimming to get out of that. I never fully did, but I'm better at it. Um, Different smaller triathlons, and then 2.5 years ago, I did my first half Ironman in Ohio. Um, it went well. The swim was tough. I had to stop a lot because I was in my head. It was the first time I did anything with that type of crowd, and swimmers that are good swimmers will run right over you. And I was pushed under multiple times, and that did not help me mentally. That actually started to piss me off mentally and got my heart racing. And when I'm swimming, my heart cannot race. Got out, got on the bike. I trained for a flat course because this was a flat course in Ohio, flat-ish. What I did not train for was headwinds. 40 of the 56 miles had 20-mile-an-hour plus headwinds. That kicked my butt. My legs were done. Needless to say, the half marathon, the 13.1 miles, was 75% walking. I was in pain. Everything hurt. Not necessarily my back, but I was having nerve pain. I was hurting. Some of my leg went numb again. This was the first time it had happened in years. I finished dead last in my age group. There was less than 1 minute on the time clock left that I would have been disqualified as a DNF, do not finish. But I finished. And that was quite an accomplishment for me. I was excited. Immediately following the race, I didn't want to do another one. But just like I said, I got to keep pushing myself. That was Ohio. I did it because I live in Ohio. I was always intrigued with the idea of doing one for St. Jude Hospital. Memphis had a St. Jude's half Ironman, and you could raise money for St. Jude's. And this would have been a year and a month after my Ohio race. I changed things for this one. I got a tri-bike like you see here that puts me in an aerodynamic position to get out of the wind. I hired an online coach to help me focus on my weaknesses. I did a little bit more strength training on my legs to get the endurance on the bike. Memphis was also a flat course. Training was going very, very well. My nutrition was in check. I was actually running longer without having to walk. I was actually running stronger. I was biking stronger. I was swimming stronger. I actually did a couple swims. I was swimming 2 miles. Never got faster, but was enjoying it more. Everything was going great for that race. I signed up as a fundraiser. Once you reach certain milestones of your fundraising amount, you got free items. One was a free entry into the race. I reached out to St. Jude's and I said, I don't want the entry. I'm raising money for St. Jude's. I bought my own entry. The only thing I wanted for free was after I raised a certain amount was I got a free tri-kit that says St. Jude Hero on it. That's all I wanted. I was happy to reach that. In my position at my job, I dealt with a lot of vendors. I reached out to them and said, this is what I'm doing. Will you help? And I actually raised over $5,000 for St. Jude's for that race. I was so happy about that. The week before the race, I did notice a twinge, I guess you'll say it. I thought it was just sciatic nerve. I've had that before in my life. I was not concerned about it. I got to get in with a physical therapist a week before the race. He kind of helped me out a little bit. I got on some strong anti-inflammatories. I did a lot of stretching and foam rolling and cut way back on my training for that last race, just to do it easy. Didn't think anything of it. The day before the race, when we got to Memphis, I went out and did a short bike, a quick run, and I felt great. I knew I was ready for that race. Did the swim faster than any swim I ever did, either in a race or not in a race. Got out of the water, felt great. Got on my bike. I had the fastest bike time. ever. Getting off that bike in transition for the run, I was on pace to finish over a half hour faster than I did for Ohio. I was at a mental high. I loved it. When I got off the bike, since I knew I had a twinge, I did some stretches. Tried to stretch things out. Walked the bike to the start. On the bike started, or I'm sorry, walked the bike to transition. I stretched. Changed shoes. Did some of my nutrition. Started walking towards the transition line to start my run. Saw my daughter. She took a couple pictures. You could see the smile on my face. I just knew this was going to be the best race ever. Started jogging. Got a mile in and I started feeling that twinge again. That instantly beat me mentally. I was done. I focused on nothing but that twinge, and then the pain started. By mile 2, I was walking and I was barely able to walk. The pain was so severe. Nerve pain down the front of my legs, nerve pain down the back of my legs, nerve pains in my hip, a weird loss of sensation in the front of both of my legs. If you touch the skin, I didn't feel me touching my skin. Loss of sensation in my whole lower back. I could not feel myself rubbing my back. It was the most excruciating pain, more severe than the night I got hurt in the Army. I struggled walking. I made it to mile 3. I found my daughter again, who was waiting for me to take pictures. And I stopped. And I said, something is very, very, very wrong. I'm having trouble even walking. So she had me sit in her chair for a minute. I stretched, got up, went to go to walk, and the pain was still severe. I think I was there for 30 minutes. I finally had to call it. There was no way in my mind with that pain that I was doing another 10 miles. That sucked. That started instantly that day. The box was no longer locked. Everything came out. Instant depression. When they got me in that buggy and got me back to the med tent, I didn't even go in the med tent. I knew there was nothing they could do for me in there. I laid on the hot concrete and I cried. It was tough. For a half hour, I laid there. They let my family in to get my stuff, because usually it's just racers in transition. They let them in to get my stuff. I laid there. I think about 40 minutes later, I got up because my friend was also doing this race, and we were tracking him, and he was doing really well, and I wanted to see him cross the finish line. So that started a huge downward spiral. This was last October. I was in severe pain for a very, very, very long time. It did not go away. If I laid on my stomach, my inner core support muscles, they call them the psoas muscles. If I laid on my stomach for more than a few minutes, I couldn't stand up straight. If I laid on my back with my legs straight out, the nerve pain was so severe I couldn't stay that way. Another way I would lay, the numbing sensation in my legs would get worse, and it would actually become a painful tingle, like something going, like a limb going to sleep. This began the process of figuring out what the hell went wrong with me. And now I'm dealing with everything coming back mentally. It was bad. I went and saw a chiropractor. I went and saw a physical therapist. I went and saw my family doctor. I was put on anti-inflammatories. Physical therapy was doing needling in the area to get rid of the inflammation. The chiropractor was adjusting me. She did an x-ray. That's when she found all of this arthritis in my lower back. She said it was, since there was so much of it, that it was more than likely caused from my injury from in the Army. She treated me probably, this was October, she treated me till about February, twice a week. I went and got massages. I got into yoga. I was still doing physical therapy. And to make this all worse, my insurance, even though it was a major corporation, is not that good. All of this treatment cost me thousands out of pocket on top of the insurance. So I'm maxing out all my cards at this point just to get better. So finally, the chiropractor said that we need to do an MRI. I should be seeing significant improvements at this time, and we're not. So I went and got another MRI. Since it was ordered through a chiropractor that was not in my network, the MRI results went to her, but I was given the disc. So I had the disc. I went online, and this was a huge mistake. I read the results that the doctor that reads these gave. The MRI was only of L1 through L5, so 5 vertebrae. His notes were a page and a half long. Did I understand any of it? No, because I'm not a doctor. But there shouldn't be 5.5 pages of verbiage on, 1.5 pages of verbiage on 5 vertebrae. There just shouldn't be. I was convinced that I was going to go see a doctor and go over these results, and he was going to tell, or she was going to tell me that it's time for me to stop, that I can't do this anymore. I was convinced they were going to tell me that being active is detrimental to the health of my spine, that it's getting worse. That did not help me mentally at all. The depression got worse. The anxiety got worse. Everything. Like, I'd spent a lot of time. I did not go out and hang out with friends. I spent a lot of time not doing anything. I didn't want to be around anybody. I never even did go back to that chiropractor. She had the results. I didn't even go see her. That was February. I got that MRI. By April, I was talking to just going and seeing my family doctor just about the results and just seeing if he had an opinion. My family doctor knew that I'm into fitness. My family doctor knew I don't do pain pills. I don't do drugs. And then maybe he could give me a better insight on what's going on. So I did go see him late April. He looked over the results, just the reading of the results. He said that, not being a spine specialist himself, he said, with how things looked, he goes, maybe that there is a doctor out there that can look at these results and, one of 3 options. Tell me that there's nothing he can do. Tell me that maybe he can give me an injection of something that will get me by year to year, or maybe there is a surgery that can help me. He referred me to a spine specialist at the major medical university in Pittsburgh and said that he will be honest with me and told me to go see him. So I did. Reluctantly, I did go see him because at this point I'm still having, the pain wasn't as bad 24/7, but depending on how I laid, the pain was pretty severe still. I couldn't do anything without the muscles of my core cramping up. So I did go see him. What he wanted, though, is he wanted the images himself. He did not want another doctor's opinions. He wanted his own opinion. So he looked over these, and I told him right off the bat, I said, listen, I've got a long history of needing to be physically active for my mental health. I told him, I said, if he is going to tell me I have to stop doing anything, that he can just end this now and I'm going to go home. So I told him, I said, once he looks this over, either tell me get out of the office or talk to me about my options. That's the only options I gave him. So he's looking over everything. He took the MRI that I had from maybe 15 years before that, not too far from me getting out of the Army. He knew what happened to me in the Army. He's looking over everything. And he gave me the best news ever. He gave me his opinion of what he thought happened. He told me that despite having all this going on my back, he knows what I go through for training because he was also into triathlons. As a matter of fact, he just did a race that I was supposed to do the week before that because my dumb ass was going to go try to do another race. The only reason I couldn't was I was sent out of town for work. I didn't come in till very early that morning of the race, so I actually had to cancel the race. I'm glad I did, but I needed redemption. I needed to see that I could go do something. But he knew what I went through. And he said, what I put my body through and what the injuries that I've sustained in my back, he goes, I can continue. He told me, he goes, it's not that bad. He goes, it's bad, but it's not that bad. It's not sit at home and rot away and do nothing bad. He said, give it a year. Like I said, he gave me his theory of what happened. He does believe that with all that inflammation, he does believe with all that arthritis in there and things bulging and all that, that I slightly, rubbed the spinal cord with something, not really damaged it, but, rubbed it. And that chemical reaction from you doing something to your spinal cord is what is causing all this internal cramping and pain. He goes, that's what happens when you do something to your spinal cord. You get this chemical reaction. And he says it can stay in your system up to a year. And he was right, 100%. Without having an MRI immediately after the race and seeing this, I'm convinced he was spot on. Because for a year, if I try to do a bunch of sit-ups, my internal cord would cramp. If I laid on my stomach for a long period of time, I couldn't get up. And that's that chemical in that area still. And then he said, what he told me to do was build my core up, get strong, like every doctor since the Army told me. Work on core. Don't commit to a race. Don't train. Work on core. And for cardio, he is the one that got me into, he recommended ruck marching, putting a small amount of weight in a backpack and just going out and walking. No impact, good cardio, great legs, tremendous core workout. That's what started my journey on rucking. If you can't see them in the mirror, you can see them a little bit. I've got 3 rucksacks sitting there. One for heavier, one for lighter with a lot of equipment in it because I'm always prepared for when I go out in the woods for 10, 12 hours. And the other one's an old military rucksack. That became my new passion. That's what I did. I rucked. I built my core. I was in the gym every morning working on core, light strength workout, total body workout, building my legs back up. And I would say almost a year to the time, I noticed that sharp pain was gone. So he was right. But that didn't come without some mental health issues again. So like I said, things mentally were not good. I had built that up in my head that I was going to have to stop working out. I'm still at this point in my life not dealing with everything it's bottled up. I again was not in a good place. Even though I was rucking out in those woods, I was myself. I enjoyed that. That's why I would go out there, and for hours and hours. I was watching some YouTube videos about 4 months ago. And this one was a guy that went and did this training course with somebody. And it showed them out in the woods talking about team building, doing things as a team, out in the woods, surviving, what to do, how to build things. And it was interesting. And I had to look up where he was. And that's when I came across 3 of 7 Project. 3 of 7 Project started by Chad Wright and his brother. It's, the best way I can describe it, I know I'm going to botch it and I hope they don't get mad at me for it, but it's, in my mind, what I see of it is training, being the best possible version of yourself, challenging yourself, pushing yourself to limits. And the biggest thing is, and this is, I'm going to be honest, this is where one area of my life that definitely is gone is Jesus. The group is, they're Christians. And it's not a bad thing, even though I was born and raised Catholic and went to church every weekend up until before I left for the Army and did everything that the church had to do. My grandmother, who was a big part of developing who I was, helped raise me, is a devoted Catholic. And, during the Army and after the Army, I became a non-believer. things going on that were going on and things that happened in my mind wouldn't happen if God was real. One thing I've noticed though is starting watching some of these videos and listening to their podcast. Um, Maybe I'm wrong. I found them for a reason. Um, he's an ex-Navy SEAL. He's also an ultra marathoner, which an ultra marathon, you go out and you do hundreds of miles. He is just a complete badass. But what I like about his videos, I like about all their videos, is it's not always the glory of things. It's every aspect of it, the struggle, the problems, the successes. It's everything. And there's videos out there where they're just going out there and they're just shooting at the range. You know, he's reviewing guns, he's reviewing gear, he's reviewing shoes. And then the next episode, they're talking about current events and anything. I guess it's an all around great podcast. He puts on races down in Georgia, endurance races. He does training, leadership training, rite of passage, the proving grounds, the basic courses. And all of these are to challenge you, push yourself to your limit, come out of your comfort zone, challenge you, and help you become a better version of yourself. And that intrigued me. So I started watching more of their videos. And I came across one of their videos. It was just Chad and his wife, Brooke. It was one of the ones where it was called Honest Conversation, I believe. It was about 4 months ago. And I'm listening to this. I'm watching this video and I'm listening. It was supposed to be both of them talking about one event where they had to be really honest. It ended up being the majority of Brooke talking about her struggles with addiction and mental health. It was so open and honest. I couldn't stop listening to it. And it was just, it hit me. It hit me hard. I was watching this video and listening to them be really honest about things and struggles and, being on, anti-anxiety, anti-depression medicine. An hour later, I called a therapist. I didn't want to keep these bottled up anymore. I was not headed towards a good spot again. Yeah, I'm allowed to do fitness again. I'm told I'm going to be able to keep pushing myself to limits, but we're going on 25 years of me keeping this rage bottled up, not talking to anybody. I figured I got to give something a chance. And if these people can go out and be so honest about the success and the struggle and the failures of everything in their life, I can go talk to somebody about it. There was a new counselor come to the area, one of our places that we have in this town, and he had spots available because he was new. So I called him and I got an appointment. Now, the day of the appointment, I almost talked myself out of it twice. On the way there, I almost canceled the appointment. I didn't want to go through this again. That experience I had with that psychiatrist in the Army was so bad. I don't want to go through this again. So I go in to the clinic. I check in. He comes out. He gets me. Normal looking guy, beard. Opens the door of his office. I walk in, and the first thing I see are a rack from Army coins, Army medals, pictures. This guy's a veteran. Not only is this guy a veteran, he's a combat veteran. He's a wounded combat veteran. So as soon as I sat in that chair and I'm looking at this stuff, this calm came over me. I knew that there's nothing I couldn't tell this man that he would understand and he would know. I was very honest with him about my experiences. I told him I will not go on any kind of SSRIs. that I need to figure out how to fix me natural way. How can I face my demons without drugs? That was the best decision I ever made. Um, I'm not saying that I definitely didn't try anything stupid, but it crossed my mind. So when I say there was a reason, I found the 307 project. Um, it had to be God. Sorry. I'm not good at this. I told you, I'm not good at this. That episode that they did, I'm convinced, saved my life. I'll get it together, I promise. All right. Caffeine helps, right? That episode saved my life. I continue to watch them. I support them any way I can. I even went down in October and doing their races and met them face to face, told them thank you. They are the best group of people I've ever met in my life. So respectful to everybody, so open and so honest. You just, when you go down there, that race did not even feel like a race. It didn't feel like I was in an event. You know what it felt like? I thought I was at a family reunion. Everybody was great to be with. There was a fire ring. Everybody sitting around talking to each other. Nobody, not too many people knew each other. They have a little group that's done these events before they knew, but when you went down there, you were family. You get on their live YouTube podcast and you type something in there, and I support them anytime I can. These people need to stay and keep doing what they're doing, and they respond, and it's great. I look forward to every episode. I go back, I'm watching old episodes. I wish I'd have found them years ago. I wish I'd have found them when they first started. My life might be different. um, I am so glad I did. I'm actually going down there and doing their um, course in February. I'm going down again in March and doing another race. I'm going to surround myself with them as much as I can because I feel like a normal human being, that I don't have problems, that I'm not alone. Everybody has problems, no matter who you are. They don't care that I'm not a wounded combat veteran. Um, they don't care that I have mental issues. They don't care that, you know, I'm struggling with belief and believing. In God. They're not going to judge me on that. They understand. Um, I was actually in the store the other day and I picked up a Bible. I was going to buy it. I haven't held a Bible since before the Army. Maybe once in the Army. I think I attended one service in the Army. Um, I don't know. I can't explain it. um, I recommend checking them out. That's the reason I sought therapy. I still talk to this man months later. Uh, he has told me that I'm making great progress. We're actually not talking weekly now. We're down to like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. He understands things. He's helping me deal with things. He's the one that talked me into getting Nala. I knew I wanted to get a Belgian Malinois. I have been researching for over a year. I know they're a crazy breed. They're not technically a family dog, but they're great companions, especially for somebody like me that's going to go out in the woods for 12 hours. This dog can stay by my side, and she can be trained that if I start to have a panic attack or get anxiety or depression, she can be trained to help me deal with it. She's really good at giving me anxiety and stress when I'm calm. She's a puppy. She eats everything, but you know what? I love her to death. When the therapist, the first session I had with him, he was writing down notes and I was talking about things. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm really considering getting a dog that can do things with me. I have two other dogs here, and I love them to death, but they're older. Neither of them can go out for a long period of time and be in the woods. Neither of them can go for a run with me. We'll go to the park. It's all the little pug can do to even make one lap. My older boxer bulldog mix, Sid, it's, after maybe 4 laps, he's done. He's ready to go home. Like I said, they're 10 years plus older. Um, Whenever I told him that, he held up his notes, and the first thing was support animal. And whenever I told him Belgian Malinois, he completely agreed 100%. He didn't try to talk me out of it. He didn't say I was crazy for picking such a psychotic breed, because he knew. And then he started putting me in connection with groups of people that train veterans and their dogs, or will train a dog for a veteran on to deal with mental health. So as soon as she's through with all her obedience training and stuff like that, we're going to go do that. That's going to be our next adventure. She's already done many hikes with me. We play out in the yard together. And even without any training, I think she knows. There's days I'll just come home and sit on the couch with some thoughts. And without even me asking her, she'll come up and she'll lay her head on me and stay there for as long as I'm laying there. And then she'll look at me, she'll lick me to death, and then want to play. That's her way of making me feel better. So she knows. Like I said, it's a work in progress. Like I said, sometimes I'm having a great day and I come home to pure chaos. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with chaos from dogs. I'm 100% okay with that. All of them. Cats too. I do have an emotional support cat. She's mad at me for getting the dog, but she's adjusting. That brings us to now. That brings us to this episode. That brings us to me doing these videos. I want people to see that it's okay. It's no matter what you're going through, it's okay. And no matter what you're going through, somebody else is going through it too. And if you look hard enough, sometimes you don't have to look really hard. You're going to find a solution. You're going to find an answer. I don't know why. Like I said, the only thing that makes sense to me now after following the 3 to 7 podcast and Chad and Chili and Cornbread and Brooke for a few months, it has to be God. It has to be Jesus. It has to be some divine intervention. Why else would I find them? I have some big plans for the next couple of years. I've made up my mind to start surrounding myself with people that have the same drive and ambition, people that are going to help motivate me and work towards my goals and dreams. And some of those goals and dreams involve being around people like that. And being around people like now that I'm training, now I'm learning how to be a dog trainer for Nala. When I'm working with her, it's wonderful. It's a wonderful feeling. We're both learning. It's great. I'm surrounding myself with people like that. Better improvements. I finally, I had a friend convince me to finally start dealing with the VA. I never felt, even once he told me that, I don't deserve the VA. I'm not an injured vet. I'm not a combat vet. I'm just a veteran. Even most of the time today, if I go to a Lowe's or a Home Depot, I won't park in the veterans only parking spot. I'm a veteran. It doesn't say anything other than veteran. In my mind, that spot is reserved for the veteran who is going to have trouble walking from his car to that store. It's reserved for the veteran that might have to get out and get a chair to go into that store or help carrying things because he's missing an arm. I don't want to sound like a jerk for thinking that, but in my mind, those are the people that deserve those spots. Not me. I don't deserve it. According to my commander in the Army, I was a piece of crap. I didn't deserve to be in the Army. So I didn't deserve to go on and try to become an Army Ranger. I wanted to so bad. I wanted to even maybe go to sniper training. You know what I mean? I wanted to be the best possible version of myself as I could as a soldier. And he took that from me. But anyways, I'm glad the last few months have turned out the way they have. I'm very blessed to have the family I have. I know I put everybody in my life through a lot. I know I do. Some people are going to listen to this and find out some of this stuff for the first time. And some people knew some of it. There's struggle. Everybody struggles. I had no right to treat the people the way I did back then. And I know that now. Almost everybody is fighting something. And they deserve the benefit of the doubt. Everybody except for those that ride in the fast lane, the left lane, and don't go fast. They don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. But that's, my brief stint with my mental health. Like I said, there's a lot that I got to keep working on. And now I'm on the right path. So, if you've gotten anything out of this, please like and share it. Follow my channels. There's a TikTok channel, there's a YouTube channel, and my Instagram channel. That's all I'm going to do. That's a lot for me. That gets my anxiety all itchy thinking about all them. But I'm going to keep doing it. If people go out there and they put their stuff online and it helped me, maybe I can do the same. Go find somebody you can talk to. A friend, a priest, a pastor, whatever you call them, a rabbi. Go find a family member you trust. Go see a therapist. Be honest with somebody. Go find a dog to talk to. You know what? She doesn't understand me, but she understands me. It might be confusing, but I know she does. Find somebody. Reach out. If you want to talk to me and we live close to each other, we'll go out for a hike and we'll talk for hours about whatever you want. And you trust me, I don't judge anybody. I've done it all. I've been through it all. I'm going to listen. I'm a good listener. I might not have advice to offer, but I can listen. And one thing I've learned since dealing with a therapist and the VA and all this, it's hard to talk about, but I feel better after talking about it. I feel better after this. And you know what? Nobody's going to give me advice from this. I'm just talking and I will feel better. I'm going to go outside now where it's been single digits for 4 days and I have to go try to dig a post hole to support a power line so I can raise it to get a new RV we bought in my shop. And that ground is solid ice and rock. But you know what? I'm going to go do it. I'm going to have fun doing it. It's a workout. It's going to be challenging, if not damn near impossible, but I'm going to go do it. I'm going to enjoy every minute of it. So like I said, if you got something out of this, please like and share. I'm sorry this took so long. I didn't think this would take so long, but we're going on almost 2 hours now. I also apologize for not being good at this. I'm learning. I hope you stick around. I still have a lot I want to talk about through my fitness journey and things I've done, things I've tried, things that worked, things that didn't. I'm going to start incorporating some of the time I'd spend with Nala because that fits right into this narrative. So you're going to see some of our training. You're going to see some of our hikes, some of our runs. Um, so please follow my channel. Please share my channel. Um, Comment. I like reading what people have to say. If you've been through something, I want to know about it. And thanks for listening. Catch you next time.